Flippo.
Approve as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Walker. Any discussion on that? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not do that? There's nobody there anyway.
It's all right, let's do this.
Nobody on there anyway, so if anybody gets on in a minute, we'll just turn it off. I'll have to look at myself. Okay, petitions, communications, and public hearings. Item A on the agenda is to recognize Susan Liller.
That's me.
Okay, come on up, Susan. Please state your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
My name is actually Susan Kastorf. The email address is the same email that I've always used for Mr. Lilly, but it's an old one and I can't get my name changed even though I've been Kastorf for almost 20 years. So sorry about that. I have no illusions that anything I'm going to say tonight is going to make any difference in what's actually going to happen. And I feel that way because it's very clear that the current administration does not want to allow the citizens of South Charleston to have backyard chickens and or honeybee hives in their yards. They don't want them to have that opportunity to provide food for themselves. They think it's going to be a nuisance, it's going to be gross, it's going to cause problems. I have been in a number of homes that had backyard chicken flocks, some as high as 20 or 30 birds and as few as 6. I just spent the last week at my stepdaughter's home in Utah. She has 6 chickens in her yard, and all they do is pine shavings in the chicken coop. They do nothing to the chicken run. There was absolutely no smell. There were no bugs. The only time you heard the chickens is when they laid an egg, which was once a day, and it was actually less loud than her Maltipoo dog that barks nearly incessantly. So all the things that we've heard so far about how horrible chickens are, how noisy they are, how disgusting they are, is just not true. It is just not true. And it makes me very sad to think that our city councilman and our mayor has decided that we are not old enough or smart enough to make a decision about what's good for our family. When I put forth my petition, my application for chickens, I noted in that application that I had a signed letter from both of my neighbors, the only ones who could even remotely be affected by the chickens that I wanted to have. They signed and said they didn't have any problem with me having chickens. And I was told in the meeting by Mr. DeBar, well, I heard him say, he didn't say it directly to me, he said it to the other members of the property board, if we let her do this, it's just going to open the door. So this is not about an individual wanting to do something with the property that they own, being responsible, and taking care of their family, and providing for their family. This is about Mr. Mullins and the rest of whomever is on the property board that doesn't want people to have chickens. It is ridiculous to me in this day and age, with the things that we know about the food that we are provided at the store, the only choice that we currently have. It's amazing to me that people don't want to allow their neighbors to grow their own food and to have something that's good for their family. I realize that it will cost me more money to have chickens than it would ever cost me to go and buy eggs. Even when eggs were $6 and $8 a dozen, it was still less expensive to buy them from the store. But those eggs, we don't know what they contain. Those chickens have been raised in cages. They have had their beaks clipped, they have had wings clipped, and their only job is to sit in that cage 24 hours a day and shoot out eggs. That's no way to live. But we have millions of people that we're trying to feed. And these companies that grow these chickens and that have this egg business, they got to make a living, and they've got to pay the people that live there. Do you know that if only 1/3 of the families in South Charleston had a small flock of chickens in their yard, if we did that throughout the whole country, the egg industry would absolutely collapse. We wouldn't have to buy eggs from the store. You could buy them from your neighbors, and we would know what was in them, and they would be safe, and they would be healthy. But we're not allowing that. Do you know before 1930, everybody in West Virginia, almost everybody had their own chickens, or they bought from their neighbors, because these places didn't exist. The reason that we don't allow chickens in West Virginia, for a lot of the places in West Virginia, is because the grocery stores came about after World War II, and they wanted to make sure, that's when they came about. But the coal companies, I didn't write this down, the coal companies in the 1930s wanted to make sure that their coal miners were dependent upon the coal company. So they outlawed chickens, they outlawed bees, they outlawed gardens, and they made them live there, and that was the choice that they had. They couldn't leave. And this has continued to this day. So I think that if you are not going to do any research, you're not going to do a poll, which you have not done yet, you have not done any sort of survey, you have not canvassed the people in your districts to ask them how they feel about it. If you have, I'd like to see evidence of that. That's great. I'd like to see evidence of that. I have seen no evidence to date that this has been done. How can you say that you are representing the will of the people if you haven't asked the people what they think? So I'm here to ask you, please, please, put this on hold, do some research, find out what your folks say. If your folks say, we don't want chickens in South Charleston, I will happily go home, and I will never darken the door of this city council again over this issue. Because I want to do what's right for all the neighbors in my neighborhood, not just me. I'm not selfish. I'm not saying that what I want has to go before everyone else. I am happy to do what is the will of the people. But I don't think that we've discovered what that is. Every poll that CHS has taken, other people have taken, it's been more on the side of wanting to allow people to have chickens and bees. So I find it interesting that the whole city of South Charleston doesn't want chickens and bees when I know a lot of people that do. So I ask you please to take a moment, find out what your folks say, and then go forward. I think that's a fair thing to do for everybody, and I'm very disappointed. I knew this day was going to come. I knew the minute that I filed a lawsuit against the city for, I'm not going to say for what, but you all know what it's about. When I filed that lawsuit, I knew this day would come. I knew there was going to be a day that you were going to come up here and you were going to prohibit them completely. Not because you think it's right, not because it's what everybody wants, it's because it's what you want, and I don't think that's fair. And I appreciate the opportunity I've had to speak tonight. I hope you will take it under consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Okay. I'll address some of those once we get this thing on the floor. Anyway. Item B is to get this issue on the floor, and then there are some people, although this does not require a public hearing, there are people here that want to speak, and I'm going to allow them to speak. But we got to get this on the floor first. So we have a second reading of this on this issue. First reading was passed unanimously. Second reading is on here now, so I need a motion to approve this. I need a motion to adopt is what I need tonight. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Marker. Okay. So now what I'll do is I will allow those folks who want to speak. Now, it's not a public hearing technically. We don't have to have a public hearing on this, but we will use our public hearing rules, which will be to allow each person 5 minutes if they'd like to speak on this issue. So if you'll just raise your hands, I'll recognize you. You come to the microphone. Yes, ma'am. Come on.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there a petition? I mean, I'm new at this, so I don't know. Did anyone do a petition? Do we have signatures? I mean, what?
Well, it's my understanding that there was an attempt. There was my understanding that there was an attempt to do a petition to get this on the ballot for our last election cycle, and they did not get the number of signatures they needed to get it on there.
That's not entirely true.
So,
There was a petition.
Susan, we're not going to debate from the chambers.
I beg your
Okay.
pardon, Your Honor.
So, but that was my. I said that was my understanding. So that was my understanding. So, yes, ma'am. The floor is yours now, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And we have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you for letting
Yes,
me
ma'am.
speak. My name is Pam Stillhammer, and I would like to talk about honeybees. Everyone knows honeybees are important, but not everyone knows that if we did not have honeybees, 1/3 of our
food supply would be lost. That's 1/3 of our food resources would not be available. The honeybee industry contributes $15 billion to the national income. The honey industry contributes a little bit less than $5 billion. With these kind of numbers, it's just no wonder that the beekeepers' numbers have increased over the last years. Every city, nearly every city, allows beekeeping. For a beekeeper annual income, this means an increase of $3,000 to $5,000. In West Virginia, there is a program to teach unemployed coal miners how to be beekeepers. There's a farm in Martinsburg. It needed some bees to help crops. And so they got 2 hives of bees, which helped the crop. And then before long, they had 30 beehives. And they've turned that into a small business. And so anyway, I'm not saying that, South Charleston should be the capital of the state. I'm not saying that, if you have a dozen beehives throughout the city, that the economy of South Charleston is going to change significantly. But I do want to say that this is an economic development issue. You don't know how long it just would be 12, maybe it would be more. And so revenues would increase with this, the economy would increase, income would increase, and retail sales would also increase. So anyway, I just hope that South Charleston takes advantage of this economic development opportunity. I think it's an easy one to take advantage of. And just let me tell you one quote that I found when I was doing research on this. And it was, environmentalism, economic development, the opportunity to showcase West Virginia's award-winning honey. What could be sweeter?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you. Who was next? Yes, sir.
Thanks for letting me speak.
Yes, sir.
I'm actually new to the area. I moved here a little less than a year ago.
I need to state your name for the record, please.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Michael McDonald.
Thanks,
I'm on Montrose Drive.
Thank you, sir.
And I moved here about a little bit less than a year ago. And I picked South Charleston because it had a really nice small town feel. A lot of things that I missed about kind of growing up my developmental years in Utah. And I came here because y'all are nice. And everybody I've run into here, I couldn't have felt more at home. And when I spoke to some of the people about this chicken thing, I went up and looked it up, and I'm like, okay, cool, there's some hoops you gotta jump through, because I thought about getting some chickens myself. And it would be nice to have, get rid of the, little bugs in the yard, that kind of thing, just have some eggs. And this is before the prices got kind of clear out of hand. And then I found out there was red tape. But that's just life. We have red tape, we gotta deal with this, we have to navigate it. And so I support the entire thing of having chickens, but the thing I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that it seems like some folks think there's going to be hundreds of chickens, flocking around all over the county or all over the city, and I don't think there's maybe a few dozen people in the city that want chickens. You know what I mean? And so having this be like such a big kerfuffle, it seems odd to me. And if you got let's say 24 folks throughout the entire city with half a dozen chickens, hens and stuff, they're. And Susan was right. They're quiet. I had 8 chickens in my yard when I was living in Utah. And the only time they screamed was when the dogs went after them. And so, those chickens slowly dwindled down because the dogs were hungry. But that's a whole different story. But as far as them being a nuisance, they're chickens. They coo a lot. That's about it. And the same thing with bees. I don't think there's 1,000 people that want to have beehives. That'd be a lot of bees. But I think it's to be self-sufficient, especially in this day and age when things are getting so expensive and you got inflation, you got the cost of food, and you know, if the individuals are forced to just get it from one spot, it really takes away some of that individual spirit, you know, and self-reliance spirit that I think West Virginia kind of represents real well. You know what I mean? So I think if you consider that, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Who was next? Roger? Come on up, Roger.
Excuse me for, hope this doesn't count against my time.
Please state your name and address for the record, Roger.
Roger Samples, 4613 Spring Hill Avenue, South Charleston, West Virginia, 25309. The city of South Charleston, someplace special. Last time I appeared before this board was 2008, and that was with the mayor presenting me an award, Outstanding Educator for South Charleston. That was right after you were elected, I believe. Mm-hmm. It does relate to why I'm mentioning this at the chicken meeting, but that's the only time I've been here before. As far as the issue about the chickens and the bees, I have been in contact with my representative, Kathy Walker, who's also my neighbor. I had both of her children in my class. We have a great relationship, just like I've had several others in here. If you know Samples, you know Samples, because my oldest brother Ken and me. But I contacted Kathy last night, asked her if I could speak this evening, and the answer was no this morning. We replied back and forth, and Kathy, you help me if I'm giving you this information. We replied back and forth, this no, this yes, no. And Kathy's last reply to me was, Roger, it was from my phone call, will you please call the city attorney? And I said, well, why should I? The mayor's already said no. And she said, please give him a call. So I called the mayor, and I don't know the lawyer. And he was a bit gruff, and said, yes, you have permission to speak. And so I've only had about, with the meeting I had at 6, I was told at 4:25 I could speak, so I only had about 5 minutes to get this together in all the time. So it's not as worded as professionally as I'd like, and I will eliminate the things that have already been repeated. I'm concerned about the transparency here. Nothing was that I found. Kathy also shared with me it's online, which I am very tech savvy. I was a computer specialist, but I do have multiple sclerosis. Sometimes I'm in bed, I can't use the computer, I got to use my iPhone. But she said all this information is out there for people to find online. And that is the world we live in. But we do know that the citizens of South Charleston are an aging population. Many of them don't have access to the internet or don't know how to use it. Some of us probably have that same problem. But getting back to the transparency of this issue concerning chickens and bees. The first time I heard about this was in the newspaper article. And I can't remember, at the end of the newspaper article, one person said under the auspices of you, Mayor, said that that the mayor doesn't want chickens. Now, I don't know if that was stated or not, but that's what was in the paper, okay? And then the second time that I heard about anything about this was when y'all had the first reading for this ordinance, changing the city code. I may be giving the wrong terms. And that was, no, I take that back. The second time I heard was when a lawsuit was filed, if I understand correctly, against the city because y'all were not following city code in their impression. And when they asked the mayor for your comment in the newspaper, all you said was no comment. So, sir, I'd like to know what your comments, what is your views, but, and I hope at the end of this, whenever you all reply to all of our questions, give your version, I hope we get to offer, like she had attempted, to interact. I hope we have that, maybe not, but let me continue. First, like I said, I have to recap as the teacher does. I heard the article that the mayor doesn't want it. The second time, no comment. And then the third time, I heard that this meeting had happened for first reading. Didn't know about it. I'm now going to be more aware by Kathy giving me that instruction that a lawsuit was filed. And now the lawsuit is based on the city code that says that you are permitted if the proper approval is made. And then now, bing, bang, boom, a law, a change in policy makes that lawsuit moot. Because if y'all vote, then that lawsuit is moot because she's asking, or whomever it was asking for permission to be considered to have chickens. Now, I'm going to skip some of the things, and I'm trying to go quickly. There's always time for us to learn.
Got 30 seconds, Roger.
Okay, well, let me look quickly here. I do follow the law. I respect everyone. I don't feel like I get that same respect back from some. I would like to mention the bees and why I feel like chickens are important. My sister-in-law produces chickens. She gives them to people that are less fortunate. The bees, why are all those cities allowing bees? Including Charleston, they're having a Parkersburg honeybee special this weekend. But very quickly get to the bottom. I asked Kathy and all the rest of you board members and you, the mayor, to reconsider and table this motion until true transparency and interaction between the board, the mayor, and the citizens can have that discussion.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, sir.
Who else? Man, we got to get the people who haven't spoke yet.
I was gonna add something.
No, not, wait, just 1 second. Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Yes, sir, come on up.
Good evening, my name is Rick Staten. I live at 152 2nd Avenue in South Charleston. And I first want to say, as a former city attorney, I don't know how much your city attorney makes, but it's not enough. I want to just kind of make 3 quick points. First, on the issue of whether the city should allow chickens or bees, I don't think my neighbors intend to do it, but I would not be upset if they did. I have a friend who lives in Charleston who lives in an elite neighborhood there. She's got 6 chickens, and she tells me that there's no problems with the neighbors or disturbances or odors or things. And in regard to the bees, I think there's a lot of background research that shows that there is actually a need to have more honeybees and pollination in the area. I've read both complaints, and opinions are like belly buttons, but I think there's merit to both complaints, and end up in court no matter what happens. And my experience has been the first time that you go to court on either or both of the cases, the first thing the judge is going to say to you is, what have you done to try to work this out? And that's what I would urge you to do, is to meet with Mr. Urban and other people who may be interested in raising bees, meet with Ms. Castleworth and others who may be interested in raising chickens, and see if you can work it out before this thing goes further into litigation. And, I was just kind of sitting around thinking today, and not that I have a genius of ideas about this issue, but I thought of 5 possible compromises to this issue that might make everybody happy, that would assure cleanliness and assure that there was protection for people from the bees and things like that. And so what I would urge you to do is just sit down and talk to them, see if you can work it out. If you can't, that's what courts are for. But the judge I used to practice in front of, and this proved to be true, always said that going to court is like playing Wheel of Fortune. You spin it and you might get the big money, or you might go bankrupt. So my point is, try to work it out first. If you can't work it out, that's what courts are for, and it may go your way, it may go a different way, it may go somewhere down the middle. But try to work it out. That's what small towns like this are for, that's what neighbors are for, and I would like to see you make that effort before you pass this ordinance, and, run down and try to get the cases dismissed as moot. I just think that's the neighborly thing to do. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thornton,
Yes.
you didn't raise your hand, but I knew you wanted to speak.
I'll let other people speak first. My My name's Thornton Cooper. I live at 3015 Ridgeview Drive. I speak in opposition to the ordinance. The relief I request is you remand it to the Municipal Planning Commission or to some, they used to have an ordinance committee, I don't know if they still do, but kick it around for another few weeks before, and not pass it tonight. Chickens and bees are very, very different subjects, okay? So the chicken part, I've been to Ms. Kasdorf, I've been by her yard, and I think it's big enough to accommodate chickens. Because I think I've told Mr. Barr repeatedly, not in my backyard, because on Ridgeview Drive, our houses are too close together, and a lot of, there isn't enough flat space in the backyards on my side of Ridgeview. So there are a lot of places, simply because of the way they're laid out, that they're not suitable for raising chickens. But I do think, because Ms. Kasdorf does have flat, ample space, and because she's gotten the permission of her neighbors, which is really important, that we ought to come up with a situation where she'd be able to raise chickens. But I wouldn't be for doing it in my backyard, because we're just too close together. Now, on the bees are simply a different matter. I mean, I co-own apple orchards or something like that over in Tucker County, and I'm a great fan of pollinators. And I grew up in South Charleston. I'm a native. I grew up in Montrose, and I remember all the insects, the butterflies, and everything, and just how few there are in comparison to when I was growing up. And I'm really concerned about, because of herbicides and pesticides, the drop off in the population of the insects. I would like to add that in 1989, the West Virginia legislature passed a law which vested in the Commissioner of Agriculture basically jurisdiction over honeybees, raising honeybees. It did not explicitly prohibit the cities from doing something, but I don't think the people in the legislature knew there was any city in West Virginia that actually was prohibiting bees. So it went to the Commissioner of Agriculture, and I think the proper thing to deal with the bees would be the way we deal with outside swimming pools, which is, if you're going to raise bees, you need to have a fence or a barrier, and you also need a warning sign, and do that instead of regulate it pervasively. I mean, you don't know how many swimming pools there are, because people don't register that, but I assume they should get a building permit before they put the fence around it, which I can tell you from my neighborhood, they don't do it. But I'll be the first to admit that, chickens, now, I would say only a very small percentage of the lawns in the backyards in South Charleston will qualify for them. And I will concede, people said they're predators. I emailed Mr. Berkey, and he was kind enough to we had a cat that was dead, and its intestines are pulled out. I think they're coyotes, and Mr. Lilly's seen them, so I'll be the first to admit we do have predators. But I would request that instead of your passing this tonight, give it a few more months to think about, see if you can work out a compromise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thornton. Okay. Anybody else real quick? We need to wind this down. Okay. Thank you all so much. Council members, so you have a motion and then a second. I would just say to you, I think I've been pretty clear on my position on this, and I don't know why. And I think from a transparency, I'll try to address some of this stuff. From a transparency, I was just teasing with the press today, actually, about this thing is, I don't know any subject has gotten more attention than this one over the last 6 months than this. So from a transparency standpoint, my goodness, if you didn't know this was going on, I don't know what you were thinking, because it's been out there, it's been everywhere. So the other thing, I was trying to think of what everybody said and try to address some of these things. But as far as introducing this ordinance, it has absolutely zero to do with lawsuits. This ordinance was drawn up back in January or February, I think it was, and I asked Michael to hold it. And I asked him to hold it for a reason. The reason I asked him to hold it, because I knew there was an ongoing effort by folks to get a petition, to get this thing on the ballot, to bring attention to it through the media, through social media. There was a lot going on to bring attention to this issue. So I thought, okay, let's just wait. Let's let this thing play out. Let's see if maybe there is more interest out here than we think. Maybe there is. I don't know. Let's let it play out and find out. And it really didn't pan out that way. At least not what I've been told or what I've seen. And so the interest just wasn't there. Now, no, Roger, we're done. So, and as far as doing any due diligence on it, no, we haven't done any formal petition drives or it didn't make the ballot to vote. It still can. Even if we pass this tonight, it can be a referendum in 26 and the folks can vote on it. I think that would be great. There's nothing wrong. You can never go wrong with letting people go to the ballots and vote on an issue. So if we want to have a referendum in 26 to do that, God love us, let's do it.
Amen.
You know, let's do it. But at the end of the day, my position's been pretty clear. I don't think anything's said here as far as bees and chickens and whether the bonuses, pluses and minuses. I don't disagree with any of that. I don't know enough about it to do that, to be honest with you. What I've said from day one, and I have had some feedback on this. I've had residents talk to me at Kroger's. I've had messages sent to me by text, by Instagram, by email. I have had. Now, has there been a large sample? Probably not. But I have had feedback. And I think I do have a pretty good pulse of the community and what people accept and don't accept in our neighborhoods. And I've been pretty clear. I'm not against chickens and bees. If we want to have urban farming somewhere where it's compatible, let's do it. I think it'd be great. I just don't think the majority of the people that live in our subdivisions, that live in our neighborhoods, want that kind of activity in their neighborhoods. As a majority, are there some that want it? Of course there are. Of course there are. But do the majority of the people want it? And I don't think they do. Now, can we find a place to have urban farming somewhere? We have a community urban farming or do something like that? I'm all for that. I can think of a few properties that may be compatible, that aren't in our subdivisions or our neighborhoods. I'd be okay with that. We're going to talk about a farmer's market, right, Dave? We're going to do that. So, I mean, I'm okay with all that stuff. Some of the things that have been said about what the mayor's position is come from people that have never reached out to talk to me about it. Not one person sitting out here today has called my office and said, Mayor, we'd like to come talk to you about this issue. Not one. No, Roger.
I've called.
Not one. Not one. So, I've been clear with you guys. We've all talked about it as council, maybe except for Wes because he's new. But Wes and I had a conversation the other day about it. But as far as since I think Ms. Cathor came to our meeting several months ago, we've talked about this issue many times. But we held the ordinance not because of any lawsuits. It had zero to do with it. It had to do with us just wanting to give them time to see how it plays out. That was it. That was it. So I think that answers some of the questions that were brought up here by the speakers. I don't know if it answers all of them, but if you all have something you want to ask me, that's fine. We do have an obligation, I think, to protect the integrity of our neighborhoods, and that's all that I'm thinking here. I'm not against bees and chickens. It's just like any other business, though. Where do they go? Where do they go? That's all. And this ordinance was not born from my office. It was born out of recommendations from the property board, which I don't serve on the property board, by the way. But the property board members came to me and said, look, Mayor, when you scan the city and you look at it, there's very few properties we can think of where we think this would be compatible. So we would like to see you introduce an ordinance for council's consideration to just take that special permit off the table. That's how this was born. That's the truth. So anyway, that's where we're at. There's a motion and a second to adopt. Michael, go ahead, sir.
Well, Mayor, I just want to make one quick point. I think that Thornton Cooper was trying to make some argument about preemption, and I'm sure the Department of Agriculture encourages beekeeping, but the apiary statute deals with inspection of beehives, diseases, I believe registration, some other administrative issues, but we have not found any type of preemption language in any part of Chapter 19. So I would respectfully disagree with his position that the municipality does not have the right under 812.5, Section 25 to regulate and prohibit the keeping of animal or fowl, and a bee is clearly under 1916A3 considered an insect, which is an animal. So I just respectfully disagree with Mr. Thornton's position from a legal standpoint.
And I think Steve, things keep popping up, but I think Steve can confirm this and probably some others. We've had some folks that have gotten chickens in our city before and just didn't realize the procedure to have that happen. But I think to an instant that we've gotten phone calls like the next day or so, the residents complaining about it. We fielded those calls numerous times. So this is not something that we don't have a little bit of a good feel on how the people that live in our community, in our neighborhoods feel. We do have a feel of it. But again, I'd be all for if a referendum and votes in 26 on the issue. God love them, let's do it. Let's do it. But for now, this is on the table for us to consider. So, anybody else have any? Yes, sir, Adam. Yes, sir.
And one thing that Thornton brought up that actually is a pretty good point, I think, is that these are two separate things that are being considered together. And in the discussions that we've had, that I've had with you, with the rest of council, and generally around this topic, has been what the general objections are to having chickens in the residential neighborhoods. I really haven't heard a lot about what the objections are to the bees, and I'd appreciate if you elaborate a little bit.
Again, I'm not an expert on it either, Adam, and I actually had, Kathleen and I talked about this today. I really didn't have as much heartburn about the bees, to be perfectly honest with you. And it seems like all the stories in the media have to be about that as well. Though if you all remember, the ordinance that was presented to us when they first came to us, it wasn't just about chicken and bees. That seems to be what all the media wants to report on, but it was chicken and bees and guineas and pigeons and geese, and there was a laundry list of it. So it wasn't just about those two, but those two seem to be getting all the attention. But on the bee situation, Adam, maybe we can do some more research and reconsider that later. I don't know a whole lot about it, and I could be wrong about this, but I was told, I think it was a meeting Steve and I were having with people, about bees and hives and what the number of bees was. I think 10,000 was a number thrown out at me, and they can go up to 5 miles away from their hive to seek out their water source, stuff like that. So those were some of the things I think that was, now whether that's factual or not, I don't know, but that's what I was told. So somewhere in that vicinity. So that becomes an issue. I think Councilman Spurlock's the one that said he may have a problem with the bee thing because him and some other people he knows are allergic, stuff like that. So residents would have a concern about that. So I think if we wanted to reconsider that one day, in my opinion anyway, it would have to be in some kind of a special permit process to go through, so where they go in the neighborhoods don't have a negative effect on, I mean, that's the whole purpose we're having this conversation. Doesn't have a negative effect or a nuisance on the other people that live in the neighborhood. That's why we're here. So, anyway, but I've never had, I mean, I know I get to be the fall guy here, and that's okay, because I sit in the mayor's seat, and that's fine. That's fine. But I've never had real, I mean, it's not like I'm losing a lot of sleep over this either way, but I do believe, and I've been around here a long time, that the majority of people that live in our neighborhoods and subdivisions do not want farm animals raised in there. That's why you live in the city. That's my opinion. And some council members here, and I'll let you all speak for yourself, I won't repeat you, but some of you all have echoed that same sentiment back to me. So it's not like we haven't taken into consideration when they first came to us. I think all of you have heard some feedback. However much it is, I don't know, but we've all heard some feedback on this issue. It's gotten, I teased the press today, so you guys are giving this more attention than you gave our election. And they have. So, thank you. So, anyway, I'm done. You guys, the floor is yours, and as council members, what would you like to do? Or if you have any comments, or anybody wants to make any more statements or comments, please do. If not, there's a motion and a second to adopt. So all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you all. Okay, item C is to reappoint Tim Runyon to the South Charleston Land Use Agency. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item D is to approve and appoint Chuck May to the Municipal Planning Commission. Chuck is a resident of Thousand Oaks and Adams Ward, and been around a long time, graduate of South Charleston High School, I think, has his own business, and showed some interest to be on the Municipal Planning Commission. So I'd like to submit his name for appointment, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lilly. Let you follow. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Consideration of any bids. Councilman?
None this evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. Report of department heads. Anybody?
Summerfest going.
Invite everybody to Summerfest. Yeah.
Car show.
Car show. Got to bring that up
Car show
there.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Is that all day long?
Car show registration starts at 7. Trophies are at 1. We'll be out of there by 2. And if you register a car and pay us $1, you get a T-shirt and a chance to win $100 every 30 minutes.
There you go. Okay. I hope to see everybody at Summerfest. Go enjoy it, and especially Saturday night for fireworks and all that good stuff. Everybody have a good time. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Have a good weekend, everybody. Yes, sir.